Welcome, everybody, to the Stone Down Sports Podcast. My name is Matt. Really happy to be here with you today. We've got a great show on tap. As always, I'm joined here by the two-man power trip, Kyle and Ramey. Ramey, we've got some legit preseason football going on. You got a chance to see Anthony Richardson on the field. What did you think?
Hey Matt, it's good to have football back, first of all. And I was actually out to lunch with my parents and family celebrating my dad's birthday, and we were at Ale Emporium.
Nice.
Kyle. Yeah,
Excellent.
yeah, and we were watching, and I mean, it started off well, and then he threw that crazy interception. But I mean, that's going to happen this year with his lack of experience, and you just hope he gets better as the year goes on. But I didn't think it was terrible. He had moments where he looked good. They controlled it for the most part with short passes and running. Knew it wasn't going to be a finished product by any means, but it was encouraging. I think the running game is going to be strong, whether or not Jonathan Taylor comes back. And it does look like the line's playing better, at least in a short spurt there than they did last year. So it'll be fun to hopefully see him grow as the year goes on. Kyle, how are you today?
Super great. Football's back. I didn't get a chance to see any Anthony Richardson highlights. I'm a horrible sports podcaster. How did he play, a quarter or a series, or
He played a quarter, yeah.
yeah? Okay.
Yep.
Hell yeah. Lions had a game 2 on Friday, beat Giants. Looked pretty good. Defense looked good. Brian Branch looked real good. Or he should have been a first rounder. Jahmyr Gibbs looked great as well. Jack Campbell was wearing the green dot, which was encouraging. So he's communicating the defensive calls. And football, man. Getting excited about all the shit. Fantasy especially.
I think the main thing is you find the hardest part is admitting you have a problem, and you saying that you're a terrible podcaster. I think we're taking a step in the right direction.
Yeah. Pretty shitty. I am the number 3 guy on this thing. These guys carry me. I'm just here for the ride. I designed some shit. That's all. And post some stuff on social. That's all.
Riding our coattails to millions of dollars.
Yep. Sure are. Or anything. I'd be happy with a $5,000 sponsorship at this point.
Well, we do have tens of subscribers, so there's that.
Yep. Recently achieved 36. It could be more, I guess, by the time the podcast is released in a few days here. But
and we're thankful for each and every one.
Running backs, gentlemen. Running backs. Teams need good ones. They're not an emphasis like they were in the 90s and stuff. They are valued less now, but there's still a lot of damn good ones. We're going to talk about some today.
Teams need them. That's the kind of dynamite analysis that makes you number 3 on this podcast.
Number 1 running back off the board is no surprise. Christian McCaffrey from the San Francisco 49ers. Played for the Panthers there, got traded after week 6 to the 49ers, and really just kind of transformed that team. They were still good, had some playmakers, but I'll keep my stuff short because he's number 1. I mean, if you got the number 1 pick, you're going to grab him. So CMC joined the team in week 7, but he was in the starting lineup starting week 8. 49ers record weeks 1 through 7 was 3-4, tied 16th in the league. Rest of the way, we know they went 10-0. Weeks 1 through 7 points per game, 20th in the league with 20.7. CMC's there, 30.5 points per game, 2nd in the league. Big jump. Dangerous out of the backfield as a receiver. No running back totaled more receiving yards in the final 11 weeks of the season last year, with McCaffrey's 440, which was 75 more than Ekeler, despite 4 less catches. I like CMC, 200 rush, 1,100 yards, 6 rushing touchdowns, 80 targets, 60 receptions, 550 yards, and another 6 touchdowns in the air. Guy's a stud. The only thing you got to really worry about is, is he going to get hurt?
And that's why, and we can continue to talk about CMC, but I'm going to lead into my number 2, Austin Ekeler. That's why I may go with Austin Ekeler if both are available, just because of the durability. He doesn't miss as many games as CMC, and his numbers are very similar. Having played as much as he did last year, I don't want to jinx it, but it feels like CMC is due to go down with some kind of injury that will put him out 2 or 3 games. So, I mean, last year, Ekeler played all 17 games. He had 915 yards rushing and 722 yards receiving. He had 18 total touchdowns. Had a bit of a contract dispute in the offseason with the team, added $1.5 million in incentives to his contract year. So he'll be a free agent after this year. He's got a lot to prove. Justin Herbert on that team signed a new big deal. I don't see his production falling off that much, just because of the lack of a really quality running back depth on that team. And they did add a couple pieces in the receiving core, but I just don't feel like his production is going to drop off. And I mean, you never know about injury or anything like that, but I see him putting up another 210 carries, close to 1,000 yards, 8 or 9 rushing touchdowns. I think he'll catch 80-ish balls, 725 yards, another 4 touchdowns from the air. I think his production is going to be much more consistent from last year to this year than CMC, maybe, just because of the injury issue.
Eckler's a solid back. He is very, very consistent. And I think his grip on the backfield at times has more to do with the team's inability to bring somebody else in there to complement him effectively. I still think they're a candidate to maybe sign somebody like a Zeke Elliott, a lower tiered veteran guy, somebody that you can run between the tackles so Ekeler doesn't have to deal with that kind of workload. Because for fantasy, those are low value touches.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no depth, not much depth there in San Diego, Los Angeles.
There's no depth in San Diego.
There's no depth in San Diego. But yeah, and Kellen Moore's there. Maybe the Zeke thing that you just mentioned, man, that makes sense.
Kyle likes CMC. I like Ekeler. Matt, break the tie. Who would you take if you had both available in the draft?
I'll take Christian McCaffrey. It's the bigger upside. McCaffrey played a full season last year after the 2 previous years playing a combined like 7 games. So I get that. I think he's going to be used in a manner that presumably kind of keeps him fresh and doesn't subject him to that kind of beating. And he's not somebody who's going to get like 30 carries a game. He's not going to have 300 carries in a season. His body will break down. But 275 total touches, I think, is more in line with what you can expect out of a full season for him.
Yeah. And I know we've talked about it in the past, but Kyle Shanahan's just so good at being creative and using the weapons that they have in different ways. Like you can put Debo in the backfield. They've got Elijah Mitchell, even Ray McLeod. There's a lot of different options to be creative to like you said, Matt, limit those touches and keep him fresh.
Number 3, Bijan Robinson. He's a rookie coming in this year. Last season at Texas, he was fantastic. 1,580 rushing yards, 6.1 yard per carry. He had over 15 touchdowns, and he's a versatile back too. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. Atlanta is a great landing spot for him. Last season, the team had 559 rushing attempts. Running backs accounted for 455 of those attempts. So there's going to be lots of carries to go around there. They've got Desmond Ridder at quarterback, who is essentially still a rookie. He'll be starting his 5th game come week 1 this season. So they're going to be leaning on the ground attack. I look for Bijan to have somewhere around 1,200 yards rushing, probably 300 to 350 yards receiving, and 10 or 11 touchdowns.
I'm excited to watch him. He didn't play this week. He is reportedly slated to make his preseason debut next Friday against the Bengals. So I'll probably tune into that one. I'd like to see, you see film from college and stuff, but it's nice to see what he's done so far and learned at camp.
Yeah,
I like it.
It's really high for a rookie running back, and the NFL is college is tough, obviously, but the NFL is a whole different beast. So I'll be curious to see later in the season how he holds up, or if they'll look to manage his workload in the beginning to keep him fresh towards the end. Also, Desmond Ridder being an inexperienced quarterback, defenses are going to play the run, and how does that impact his production?
You know what? I think we may talk about that a little bit later on.
Nice.
It's a nice tease.
Yes, it is. That team's going to run, like Matt said, Atlanta. I like that team this year.
One of the top 3 offensive lines, top 4.
Yep.
That's a team that's built to run the ball and run it a lot.
Yep. I agree. Number 4, Saquon Barkley. Had over 1,300 yards rushing, 10 TDs last year. This year I have him as one of the RBs with the safest floors. I want him to, he can catch balls. He had 57 receptions. That was a team lead last season, but he failed to match a single receiving touchdown. I'd like to see him get some receiving touchdowns this year. He's looking more dangerous in the receiving core and training camp reports this year. He's one of the best running backs last season. Averaged 82 yards a game, 0.625 rushing touchdowns per game, ranking 4th among ranking 8th among running backs. I suppose there's a chance he does lose some fucking snaps in the passing game, which kind of hurts his value, especially in PPR leagues. I still got him 35 receptions for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's going to get 2 receiving touchdowns this year. 1,100 yards, 7 TDs on the ground. Like I said, safest floor among running backs, in my opinion.
Yeah, Daniel Jones got the big extension, but Saquon is the one that makes that offense work there in New York. He's somebody they got to keep around just because of his versatility, and he's somebody who can take it to the house on any given play. And you need to make sure you have players that are that explosive on the field.
Yeah, he was 6th worst PFF receiving grade last season. Not good. He also had the most drops among running backs last season with 7, league leading. But from what we're reading, he's looking a lot better receiving. So hopefully they get him more involved in that. He can get more comfortable and give a little more dynamic instead of just a rusher.
Moving on to number 5, Nick Chubb of the Cleveland Browns. He played all 17 games last year. He had a ton of carries, 302, but he did have over 1,500 rushing yards. He had 12 touchdowns, not a huge factor in the passing game, but he did have 27 receptions for 239 yards and a touchdown. Only lost 1 fumble all year. He's a workhorse. They're going to lean on him again this year. The couple of concerns that I have is he's consistently been a workhorse, and when does he start to wear down? And also Deshaun Watson theoretically should be improving as a passer. You hope he's not as bad as he looked last year. So you would think that they're not going to rely on the run quite as much this year. I think he'll still have 280 carries or so. I think he'll put up around 1,400 yards and again, close to 10 touchdowns. In the passing game, I could see him getting maybe a little bit more production just because of that offense. And like I said, Watson picking things up. 200 yards, maybe a touchdown from the air. But they're going to ride him to control the clock and to keep the game in reach. But between the amount of carries that he's had over the last few years, no more Kareem Hunt there. Jerome Ford's his backup now. So the dynamic in the backfield shifts a little bit. I think that he'll much like Saquon, his floor is solid there. And he does have a high ceiling as well, but he's just a workhorse, and he's going to give you consistent points week in and week out.
He's a badass. I think he's got a legitimate argument for best running back in the NFL, period. I'm really high on that offense this year. I think Deshaun Watson is going to start to look like Deshaun Watson of old. They've got some great weapons there in Amari Cooper and Elijah Moore. There's going to be a lot to go around. They've got a rookie running back behind him who's going to help a little bit, but I think they're going to give him all that he wants. I would have no problem taking him as the second running back off the board, honestly.
Yeah, and the flip side to my Watson argument, picking things up and passing passing better than he did last year, it opens things up for the running game, so he could benefit from that as well. There's an argument to be made there, but I agree. He's a workhorse. He's a high floor and even a high ceiling guy. Unless something catastrophic happens, he's going to be giving you consistent numbers week in and week out.
Yeah, and if he can play some third down this year, that would also help his fantasy out. But reports from training camp suggest he's getting some work on third down. So he's been a good receiver when he has. He's caught 75% of the balls thrown to him, 158 balls. Plus, he's a much better blocker than Ford or Belton.
Yeah, speaking of good blockers, number 6 on the list, Tony Pollard, coming from the Dallas Cowboys. Last season, he was the number 4 overall running back, according to PFF, 4th in run grade, 7th in receiving, and 3rd in pass protection, which is something that's very important there in Dallas, as they want to keep Dak on the field. He split time with Zeke last season. He still managed around 1,300 total yards, and he had 11 games of either 80 total yards or more or a touchdown. The big key to that was his efficiency on a per touch basis. I think with increased touches this year, because there's just Jags behind him on the depth chart, I think you're going to see a decrease in that efficiency, but still an increase in his overall numbers. I'm thinking somewhere around 1,400 total yards and close to 10 touchdowns.
I don't like the Cowboys, you know that, but if I was to pick a Cowboys player, I'd pick Tony Pollard.
I don't know what they're going to do without Zeke there, and hell, you never know. They may bring him back eventually, but it seems like they've built a backfield. They've got Malik Davis behind him, but they also drafted Deuce Vaughn, who seems to replicate a lot of the stuff that Tony Pollard does. He's not as big as Tony Pollard, but he's more of that versatile running back that can come out of the backfield.
He's not as big as anybody else, bro.
No, he's not.
Tiny.
Yeah. But he's more of a receiving running back, a third down back, and that's what Pollard was a lot last year. So I'm high on Pollard. He seems to be back from his injury. He's got his contract stuff kind of figured out. At least he signed the tag, so he's in camp, he's playing. He's going to be the featured back. So I agree. I think his stats are going to be good. It's just who gives you that between the tackles kind of running that Zeke gave you last year that allows Pollard to stay fresh as the game goes on and as the season goes on.
It's going to be a big question for them.
Yeah, sure. He had 1,000 yards rushing. Just doing something right. That's a potent offense too to be in. So very high upside there in Dallas. East of there a bit in Tennessee. Remember last year when everybody was kind of fading Derrick Henry last year? That turned out to be a big fucking mistake. I played 16 games, had 1,538 rushing yards, second lead behind Jacobs, 13 touchdowns. I mean, he was still solid in an offense that had cratered around him. Tannehill was gone. Burks was hurt. It just wasn't a good offense, and he still produced those kind of numbers. I mean, they wrote him 349 times. But his advanced stats still look good. He's 4th in both yards after contact per attempt and broken tackles per attempt. So he's like not showing much of a decline there. He's going to be 29. I still have him having a great year. 300 carries, 1,200 yards rushing, 10 TDs again. That would make it his 6th season in a row with 1,000 yards from scrimmage and 10 touchdowns. I think he'll add on 200 yards in the air on 20 receptions. And I don't see a receiving touchdown. That's just his thing. But when Tannehill went down last year, he just took over 25 carries a game, 142 yards, and 1.2 touchdowns per game. If he would have kept that pace, it would have been a 2,000-yard season.
Yeah, the only thing that concerns me about him is he's getting to that fall off a cliff age.
Yeah,
where
which is, like I said, what they thought was kind of last year was going to happen, and then it didn't. So, like, is this the year that finally happens?
Yeah,
I got you.
Yeah, but I mean, you can't because of his production and the way he runs. I mean, I'll believe it when I see it. It's going to happen at some point. I don't know if it'll be this year or not, but he's the guy. And they talk about it during the game. They just pound him up the middle, and he gets stronger as the game goes on. He seems to wear down the defense. That line supports him well, but the Titans are okay with those 1, 2, 3 yard carries in the first couple of quarters, because they know in the third and the fourth quarter, when the defense wears down, he's going to break some of those runs. And that's how he got a lot of his yards last year. He's an old school running back, and that's fun to watch, and it works for that Titans offense. I know that they signed
DeAndre Hopkins.
Thank you, DeAndre Hopkins. So you hope that they're a little more balanced this year, but Tannehill's not going to light the world on fire with what he does. He's a solid quarterback, but as long as Henry's healthy, I think you can count on the same amount of production. Well, production's not the right word. I think you can count on the same amount of carries and touches for Henry. What remains to be seen is if he does hit that cliff, do the 8, 10, 12 yard runs in the third and the fourth quarter go away because he just can't sustain that anymore.
Yeah, the big key for him is going to be health. And I know you can say that about anybody, but he's somebody who at this point in his career is just getting things done through volume. You know, his yard per carry has gone down each of the past couple seasons after he had that giant workload in 2020 where he had almost 400 carries. And we've seen that before with other running backs who get a giant workload, and they're just not quite the same as they were before. So we'll see how it plays out. I'm going to fade him this year just because I'm one of those people that think when the decline does happen, it's going to be off a cliff. I don't think it's going to be a slow, steady decline for him.
So you're going with the Belichick method of get out a year early rather than a year late.
Yeah. I mean, I was fading him last year too. So.
And now we move on to the Ramey rant portion of the podcast, because Jonathan Taylor is next. And this is a really tough one because the Colts are obviously near and dear to my heart. He was injured with an ankle last year, so his production wasn't great. He only played 11 games, had 192 carries for 861 yards, had 28 receptions out of the backfield, but he only had 4 touchdowns total between rushing and receiving. Will he play? That's the question, and he's slated to be back in training camp this week. Whether or not he participates in training camp is yet to be seen. He's in the final year of his rookie contract, so he does have something to prove, but we've touched on it before, knowing that he can be tagged 2 additional years. Does he want to draw a line in the sand that he's not going to walk over to his own detriment? There's no benefit in him not playing. And for that reason, I think he eventually will join the team. And as long as he's there and fully engaged, I think he'll have a productive year. I think he'll have around 280 carries. I think if he plays, he'll have about 1,400 yards, 10 touchdowns. I see them increasing his receptions with Anthony Richardson. You want safe, quick throws, so getting him out of the backfield. I see him catching around 50 balls, maybe 300 yards and a couple of touchdowns. So it goes back to if he plays, that running back room has a little bit of depth with Zach Moss and Deion Jackson. So I don't think he will be quite the workhorse that, say, a Nick Chubb or Josh Jacobs would be. But as long as he's playing and healthy, he's going to be productive. It's just, is he willing to get back on the field and play, knowing that some money is better than no money, even if it's not as much money as you hope for.
Yeah, I think the issue is he's still on his rookie deal. If this were taking place next offseason, then I think, to me, it would make more sense. Him being away from the team right now, I think, is 100% him playing the game. Quite frankly, both he and Irsay look awful in this. Jonathan Taylor's no idiot. He's a smart dude. You know, it sounds like, though, that maybe his agent was kind of pissing in his ear a little bit. But when he's on the field, he's a top 5 running back with tremendous touchdown upside. I've got him in a keeper league. I'm debating on the salary at the moment. Some days it's, screw it, I'm going to drop him. And other days it's like, well, I don't see him missing, if he does miss time, maybe he misses a game, maybe he misses 2 games. I don't know what his end goal is. Maybe it's just to not get franchised.
He, like you said, he wants to get paid. The Colts have paid their guys, Shaq Leonard, Quentin Nelson, right or wrong, whether you should pay those positions as much as they did. They signed them to long-term contracts the year before their rookie contract expired. Now, that being said, Taylor was out for a few games last year with an ankle injury. So from the Colts perspective, it's like, get on the field and prove it, and we'll pay you. We've shown that we pay our guys, but his agent is his new agent as well. So his agent hasn't seen any money from Jonathan Taylor. And I think because of that is the motivation to try to drive a new deal now so that agent can get paid as well. But I agree with you, Matt. They both look terrible, both Irsay and Taylor. This should have been done behind closed doors. But that is not the purpose of this running back discussion today. So we'll get into that another time.
Number 9 off the board is Najee Harris. As a rookie, had a fantastic season, 1,200 yards, shit ton of touchdowns. Last season, he was hurt coming into camp. It was a Liz Frank injury or some kind of foot injury. And for where you were getting him last year in the first round for the first half of the season, you were probably kind of pissed. But if you held on to him through the bye, you were treated with somebody who had all 6 of his 80-yard games in the second half of the season, and he scored 6 of his 7 touchdowns. His yards per carry was up by a full yard as well. In the offseason, the team did make some additions to help out on the offensive line, which was not so great last year. I think this year he gets back closer to his rookie form, something around 1,200 yards rushing, maybe 250 receiving, and he'll push for 8 or 9 touchdowns. I think he's a good value where he's going.
I agree. Right there is perfect. 9.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that that offense is going to focus on the run, especially with Kenny Pickett continuing to develop. So they'll run him a significant amount, but at the same time, his per carry average isn't anything through the roof. So he's going to be a consistent guy as long as he stays healthy. And I feel silly saying that because you touched on it, Matt. You can say that about anybody. I mean, you can say that about us. If we're healthy, we're going to be consistent. May not be consistently good, but yeah, I think he's a guy that if he's your running back 2, I think you would be very happy. I think he's on that low end of the running back 1 scale.
I actually like this next guy one spot better. I kind of wish they were flip-flopped if I would be doing some rankings, but Rhamondre Stevenson with the Patriots, number 10. I would take him ahead of Najee. It will depend on if the Patriots do anything meaningful in signing a running back, because the running back room was Ty Montgomery, Pierre Strong Jr. with 10 career carries, and J.J. Taylor, who's 5'6", 190. That's not going to fly. Just 3 quick facts about Rhamondre. Last year, only 4 running backs had at least 4 games with 65 rushing yards and 4 receptions. CMC, Barkley, Josh Jacobs, and Rhamondre. His target share was 17% last year, was the 3rd highest. And last year, Stevenson had 15 plus touches in 14 of the 17 games played. It's pretty good. Saw plenty in the red zone too. He saw almost 48% of the team's red zone rushes and converted 9.4 of them touchdowns. Good. He only had 5 touchdowns this season. I got him 1,100 yards rushing. I think he gets to 9 touchdowns this year rushing. I'll throw another 50 receptions for 330 yards and a couple TDs on there too. And then, yeah, keep in mind you do got to downgrade him a bit if they make like a meaningful addition there of running back in the Patriots organization.
If they did sign somebody, how far down are you dropping him?
At least 5 or 6 spots. I mean, Joe Mixon's 16th. I'd go, okay. I'd rather have Mixon at that point.
I think he becomes a low end RB2 at that point instead of a high end RB2.
Yeah. He's got a real option to be an RB1 with some touchdown upside. But if he can build on last season as a pass catcher, and he's the man there.
Is that offense going to be potent enough to put him in a position to score many touchdowns?
I think so.
Yeah.
There's nowhere to go but up, dude. Like that was an unmitigated disaster last year.
Yeah.
Bill O'Brien, for all his faults as a GM, is a very competent coordinator, and he was a competent head coach. So yeah, I've got faith in him to run. I mean, at least a league average offense, if not a little bit better.
All right, let's talk about Josh Jacobs. Let's continue the theme of guys that may not play this year.
Right.
Josh Jacobs. When I talk about Nick Chubb being a workhorse, Josh Jacobs looks at Nick Chubb and says, "Hold my beer." He had 340 carries last year and 53 receptions on 64 targets. He played all 17 games. He had 1,653 yards, 12 touchdowns, another 400 yards receiving. It's much of the same as Jonathan Taylor, but I think we touched on it when we were talking about Jonathan Taylor. This is different because Jacobs is refusing to sign the franchise tag. He's still not on his rookie contract. So he has much more reason to hold out longer than Taylor does. If he comes back, he's going to be a focal point of that offense with Jimmy G there. You've got weapons on the outside, so I don't see his workload being as high as it was last year. I see him coming in around 250 carries for 1,200 yards and 8 touchdowns, but I see him catching another 40 balls and 350 yards and getting a touchdown or 2 there. It's just I hate to sound like a broken record, but it's if he plays and if he comes in and signs his tender and decides to play out the year and see where that may take him. But he's going to be a guy that's going to get you points on a weekly basis. It's just, is he going to be there? So I would be nervous about drafting him. Fortunately, most of my fantasy drafts aren't for another 3 weeks or so. I hope that they come to some kind of resolution in that time. But if they don't, I would fade Josh Jacobs this year.
Yeah, there's some risk with taking him. There's some risk with taking Taylor. And right now what you're seeing is that risk baked into their ADP. You know, there's no way, if the situation was different where Jacobs was under contract, there's no way in hell you'd get him at 11. He'd have been gone. He'd be a top 3 pick probably. That said, you've got a new trigger man running the offense this year. There's going to be, you know, some aspects as far as team chemistry that are going to need to get worked out. But I'm not concerned at all about his talent and the level of play he can put up. I don't know that I want to draft anyone who isn't under contract, especially this high, you know, because you're drafting him as a low end RB1 in a 12-team league. That's somebody you need to count on.
I would also be fading him. I'm not. I don't know if he's going to play. And in training camp, you don't sign the tag, you're not getting any fines. So there's no reason for him to come back.
Well, somebody we're not going to have to worry about being there week 1 is the number 12 running back off the board, rookie Jahmyr Gibbs. And it was a lot of fun to do this one. I was looking into what he did at Alabama, averaged 6.1 a carry there, averaged 10.1 yards a reception. And to kind of figure out where expectations could possibly be for him, I looked at Deandre Swift's production over the past 3 years. And while Swift was good to miss 3, 4, 5 games every year, he still averaged just under 1,000 total yards and 9 touchdowns per season. I think that's a good baseline for Gibbs. However, I'm a little bit more optimistic than that. I'm looking for him to come in between 1,150 and 1,200 total yards and 8 touchdowns. I think he's going to be used more as a weapon and less of a quote unquote true running back. I think there's going to be a lot of times when both him and Monty are both on the field at the same time.
Dude, it's going to be so great. He's going to be so versatile. Watching him in Friday's game, he caught that one 18-yard reception for a first down. And the cat's going to be good, dude.
So let me ask you.
So
I'm
excited.
Sorry.
So excited. No, I can't contain my fandom.
Yeah. How much of your optimism revolves around the team that he plays for?
I'd be trying to get him if he didn't play for the Lions.
Yeah.
Because of he's a fucking Swiss Army knife.
He is. I think Ben Johnson's going to do a good job of finding ways to get him the ball in space where he can get the rock and then make a play. So part of it is the team that he plays for, but not because it's my team, if that makes sense, but it's more the team context and his fit in the offense, the type of offense they run.
Travis Etienne, 13th running back off the board, 40 overall, had over 1,100 yards last year rushing, 9th in the league and 5 touchdowns. Jaguars finished one of the hottest teams, and he was a big part of that. The troubling part about him is his pass catching. He saw just under 8% of the team's targets and was only targeted on just 14% of his routes. I don't understand it. He had a great reputation in college as a receiver. He caught 85 passes in the final 2 seasons at Clemson, and guess who his fucking quarterback was? Trevor fucking Lawrence. So I'd like to see that a little bit. Jacksonville's line last year was kind of not very adept at run blocking, and he still got 1,100. So they've made some improvements over the year or over the past year. I'll say they had 1,000 yards rushing, 6 touchdowns, 40 targets, 25 receptions, a couple more touchdowns. Not much in yards, 250.
I think that's fair.
I'd like to see him catch the fucking ball some more. I think he can do it. So,
yeah, I think there's some upside to those numbers as well. Just depending on how that line plays. They, like you said, they were no bueno last year. So pretty much doing anything at all will be an improvement.
They got Calvin Ridley. You think that'll open up the field a little bit?
Good.
Maybe help him catch some more passes that way. So we'll see how Calvin Ridley affects that offense.
It should be a dynamic offense either way, and you would think that Etienne is going to benefit from that. Number 14, Breece Hall from the Jets. Kyle, I know you just did a short on this, and I tend to agree with what you said in that short. He obviously got hurt last year, tore his ACL, only played 7 games, but was really, really electrifying and dynamic. But prior to that injury, 80 carries, 463 yards, had 4 touchdowns, had 19 receptions for just shy of 220 yards and a touchdown. Running backs don't do well coming off a year where they tore their ACL. It's usually year 2 where they do better. And because of that, I'm not high on Breece Hall. I think that they will ease him in very slowly. I wouldn't look for much production the first half of the season. If you can afford to put him on your bench and stash him away, he could be a guy that towards the end of the year might give you some good numbers because of his freshness and they're slowing him or easing him into the offense. Let me learn how to talk. Also, the potential of signing Dalvin Cook changes everything as well, would really impact his production. That being said, I look for him to have around 150 carries throughout the year, around 800 yards and 7 touchdowns, another 40 receptions for 450 yards and 3 touchdowns. So I think that offense is going to be much more balanced because of Rodgers being there. But again, because of the injury and because of the potential of signing Dalvin Cook, I don't think he's going to be at the top of any running back list at the end of the year. I would be high on him for next year.
He might make an impact, like you said, later in the season. It's going to take a little bit of growing pains through the first couple months of the season for the Jets to get everything figured out, with Rodgers being new, everybody learning the new offense, and everybody just meshing. So maybe the time they're trying to figure that out, he's getting healed, and maybe it could make a little difference this year. I don't think he'll have 7 touchdowns, though.
I don't either. The big thing coming back from an injury like that is going to be burst or lack thereof. I don't think he's going to look like he looked last year, agreed, until next year. And he's not going to get the volume to offset that. Next on the board is Aaron Jones from the Green Bay Packers, number 15 running back off the board. Last season, he did well again, over 1,100 yards, close to 1,500 total yards. He had 7 touchdowns. Aaron Rodgers is gone over the past 3 years. He's not thrown more than 550 attempts. With Jordan Love starting, I can't see them increasing that. So there should be some more rushes to go around. AJ Dillon is there, and he is a viable factor there in the backfield. With Jones, they run a split backfield, like pretty much every team in the NFL does at this point. This season, I think he's going to have 220 carries for a little over 1,000 yards, and I think he'll chip in 250 to 300 in the receiving game. 8-9 touchdowns, something like that. You could do worse, especially at this ADP.
Agreed.
Going to be leaned on a lot to run that off. I don't know. Jordan Love looked good the other day, but preseason game, I fucking hate the Packers. I don't even want to talk about them anymore. Joe Mixon. One of the few true workhorse backs left in the league. We spent the whole offseason kind of waiting for them to cut him, and then they didn't. They restructured his money. Still going to be 27 this season. Still got a couple years left. He finished second in carries from inside the 10 last season. Unfortunately, only just scored 5 touchdowns. I think what'll help is they signed Orlando Brown Jr. He's a run blocking extraordinaire. I think that's going to help. They significantly upgraded their line. Target shares, too. He's great catching the ball. When Chase, Higgins, and Mixon are on the field, Chase is 25%, Mixon is 24%, Higgins is 21%. He's getting looks. I like him for 850 yards rushing, 7 touchdowns, 60 targets, 45 receptions for just under 400 yards and a couple receiving touchdowns this year. I like him kind of right where he is. Talked about earlier about Rhamondre got somebody. The Patriots got somebody in the backfield there that I would then and tune take Mixon over Rhamondre. I like Mixon better. He's going to flirt with a top 5. Well, not top 5. I'll say 5 to 7 finish this year.
Yeah. That offense is so potent that he's going to have lots of opportunities. So yeah, the touchdowns is the part I would be concerned about. If it could go either way. Like you said, last year, he didn't capitalize a ton. So maybe that evens out this year and he does put up a top 7-8 running back production in the fantasy world. Kenneth Walker III out of Seattle. Had a good rookie year last year. He played 15 games. He had 228 carries and just over 1,000 yards. He did injure his groin in camp, but it doesn't look to be a serious injury. They're just taking it slow with him, as they should in camp. That offense is going to run through Geno. They're going to try to pass the ball a lot, but Walker offers what?
Oh, Geno Smith.
I mean, he is what he is, and until he's not, I think that they're going to try to pass the ball quite a bit next year. But Walker will provide some good balance. I look for him to have very similar numbers to what he did last year. You've got Zach Charbonnet behind him, giving him the opportunity to stay fresh. I think he'll have around 230 carries. Again, just over 1,000 yards. and 8 or so touchdowns. I think he'll have 30 grabs for about 180 yards and another touchdown out of the air. So solid numbers from this position. I wouldn't be afraid to take him at this spot.
I worry about his injuries. He's already having issues. What's the one? It's a groin, I think.
Yeah.
Groins are tough.
Yeah. They said he's running again, and his next step is he's running in straight line. His next step is to be able to run in a zigzag.
Right.
Zigzag. I prefer zigzag. So it doesn't look to be serious, but yeah.
Zigzag. What is this, like an elementary school fucking
I'm a 12-year-old.
day celebration or something?
Yes.
Zigzag race.
We're all gonna play tag after this is over.
Get your potato sacks, kids, and bounce around here in the zigzag formation. I love it. Yeah. I don't know. You said they're gonna throw the ball a lot. They're still gonna fucking run a lot.
Yeah.
I know they are. They're the Seattle Seahawks. Should have ran the ball a few years ago in the Super Bowl. But
next on the board is the number 18 running back is Javonte Williams. He's somebody coming off of a catastrophic knee injury. He tore 3 ligaments in his knee. Played 4 games last season, and he's somebody who had a lot of hype coming into the season last year. Formed, fairly well in those 4 games. Completely overhauled the coaching staff there in Denver. You've got Sean Payton in. Sean Payton come out and said he's 100%. There ain't no way in hell I believe that. He's, I think, 10 months out from surgery. There's no way. I'm staying away, even at that price. You can get him at the 5-6 turn in a 12-team league, but no. Because I projected everybody. I gave him 170 carries, 731 yards and 4 touchdowns, and then another 200 through the air. Both he and Samaje Perine are halfway decent at catching out of the backfield.
This is another guy. I mean, he's in the Breece Hall camp, right? Let's take a look at him next year after he gets through a year.
Yep, I agree. I think he's going to be real good at Sean Payton's offense when he's 100% healthy. Next year's the year for him. Agreed. Somebody who's not going to. I have Miles Sanders, 19th running back, 63rd overall, had over 1,200 yards last season, 11 touchdowns with the Eagles. The part there is that was an elite offensive line. The Panthers front is, kind of shaky. Philly also had an MVP candidate in Jalen Hurts, and Panthers are going with a rookie QB with Bryce Young. Conditions are less than ideal, There's going to be a regression in the touchdown total. He's not getting 11. And yeah, he averaged he's a 4.9 per carry last season, but only 1.86 yards created per touch, 50th in the league. His evaded tackle per touch rate was 23%, 35th in the league. I don't see it. This offense doesn't really project to be explosive this year. I don't like it. I'll say 200 rush attempts, 750 yards. I'll throw him 5 touchdowns. You don't do too much in the air. He'll get 30 targets, maybe catch 15, 18, 20 for 150 yards, no touchdowns. I'm fading on him. I don't.
I kind of like him this year. I think there's some volume upside there. And while he won't have the same efficiency that he had in Philly, I think he could grind out 1,000 yards if he stays healthy. Not much more upside than that. He thinks he's a 3-down back. The rest of the NFL says otherwise. They've got Chuba Hubbard there as well to kind of handle that role, who did pretty damn well last year. I think his best case scenario is something like 1,100 total yards this year.
He's hurt too, right? He's got a groin that he's dealing with. So not a good start to the season, coming in with an injury already. So I think we're gonna start to see a pattern as we go through these next guys. Like, we're at the point of the draft where it's just a bunch of guys. So
they've all got warts.
Yeah. So it's It's just Kyle's kind of pick.
Yeah.
Cam Akers.
No,
Come
what?
on. Wait, did I skip somebody again?
Yeah, it's Kyle's turn. I just did Javonte.
I just did
No.
Miles fucking Sanders.
Yeah,
Somebody's
I'm
got
right.
Alexander
I'm
Ingram.
right.
Oh,
God damn it.
is it Cam Akers now?
Yes.
Oh, this list switch was fucking. It's got Madison's 20th now. I'm not looking at the thing in a second. I should probably.
That's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the text.
Yeah.
I just built all that up to say I really don't like Cam Akers. He's just a guy that doesn't seem to be a workhorse running back. He did play 15 games last year, which was good for him. He had 188 carries and 786 yards. He did have 7 touchdowns. Only had 13 grabs for 117 yards in the air. Didn't have any touchdowns there. Stafford's healthy. Kupp's healthy. He should see some benefit from that, but I'm just not real high on him. I think he'll have around 200 carries just because he's the lead back there. But Kyron Williams coming behind him, he's a good backup, so I could see him stealing some carries away from him. I think Akers will have around 800 yards and 5 touchdowns out of the air because Stafford's back. I could see that production increasing. I could see him having around 35 receptions for 300 yards and maybe a touchdown or 2, best case. But again, it's just depending on the matchup, this is a guy I would plug in if my running back 1 and 2 were on a bye. And if, again, it would have to be the right kind of matchup.
Yeah,
He was good.
I would say the Rams are an offense I'm out on this year. I don't know what the hell was going on like over the past couple of years with Akers, where he's with the team and then he's gone, and I don't know. It's too fucking strange. I'm staying away. I'll let somebody else take him, and there's a couple other guys I like a little bit later that I'd rather have.
I think last year they kind of had him on the committee approach, and then that, a lot of people got hurt, but the last 3 games he did well. He was 5.5 yards a carry, had back-to-back 100-yard rushing games, 3 touchdowns. I would like to see him be a more central figure in this offense and be a 3-down back. See what he can really do.
That line's got some problems too.
It does. That's true.
This team needs to pull the trigger and go in full rebuild. Like they're just kicking the can down the road. They're not going to be that good this year. And I'm with you, Matt. They don't excite me from a fantasy perspective.
Now, they won the Super Bowl. They thought they'd do like a 2 or 3 year retool, but I think that's going to reveal itself to be a much bigger task than they thought it would be. The number 21 running back off the board is Dameon Pierce. You can get him in the 6th round. He missed the last 4 games of the season last year, but still put up almost 1,000 rushing yards. The team has a pretty solid offensive line, especially their tackles. They brought in Devin Singletary from the Bills this year. I think this season, his stats are going to be roughly flat from last year, maybe around 950 yards. So chip in a $125 in the passing game to get over 1,000 total yards, maybe half a dozen touchdowns. I don't think there's a whole lot of upside here with him, but I do think there's a pretty safe floor.
Texans. Yeah.
That should be their motto this year. Texans. Yeah. They're going to go by committee, so it's going to depend on who's the high hand. I could very much see Devin Singletary, depending on the matchup, stealing some touchdowns from Pierce. Seeing CJ Stroud in the preseason, he didn't look great in his first game, but they're going to have to run the ball a lot, so maybe there's some upside there. I can't get excited about the Texans.
They really upgraded their line this year, their offensive line. While Tunsil was there, they re-signed him. Shaq Mason, they extended. Titus Howard, they added in free agency. Could be good. That's some good pieces right there. So could be good. CJ Stroud's going to need all the help he can get because he looked absolutely awful.
Well, imagine your first NFL game action, preseason or whatever, and across the field from you is Bill Belichick.
Right.
Like, we all know what he does to rookie quarterbacks, and yesterday was no exception.
Number 22 running back, Alexander Mattison, 69 overall. He's now the number one guy there in Minnesota. What?
You said 69 overall. I laughed.
He's now the number one guy there since Dalvin Cook was released. Should be in line for a massive workload. I think he could be a great fantasy football asset if he can capitalize on that volume. Cook was more like a kind of cut and speed kind of guy. Madison's more power, brings a more physical run style. In the 6 games that Mattison started for Cook when Cook was injured, he had almost 500 yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground, and 23 catches for 216 yards and another 2 scores. Those are pretty damn good numbers, proving his 3-down ability. And this is a potent offense too. Plenty of touchdown opportunities for Mattison, and he's a good enough receiver to be a 3-down back. I got him 250 rush yards. I think he'll hit 1,000 yards. I'll give him 9 on the ground and 35 receptions for 250 yards and another 3 touchdowns. So yeah, I think it could be over 1,000 scrimmage yards, 1,000 touchdowns. I like his situation this year.
I think you're a little generous with the touchdowns, but the rest of it is spot on. There is absolutely nobody there to challenge him for carries. So they're going to give him as many as he can handle.
Yeah. He could be the biggest steal, really. 20.
Yeah.
I mean, 22 overall or 22 running back.
If we had cut this off at 15, I would have picked him as my sleeper. I think he also has never carried the ball more than 134 times in a year. So you run the risk that late in the season, he starts to wear down because he's used to being that supplementary piece. But I am high on him. I think he'll do really well. But I do have that kind of fear in the back of my head that maybe he hits a wall mid-season and doesn't do much towards the end. And that's why the Vikings kind of fall out of the division race.
I accept that outcome.
I knew you guys would.
Yeah, right.
I played to my audience. Number 23, J.K. Dobbins. This is a guy that I was super high on his rookie year, and he has just let me down every single year. He's coming off back-to-back years where he had knee problems. Last year was an ACL. In 8 games, he had 92 carries for 520 yards and 2 touchdowns. Out of the backfield, wasn't much to write home about. He had 7 catches for 42 yards and a touchdown. He not only is coming off a knee injury, but he also seems to be a poor man's Jonathan Taylor in the fact that he's not happy with his contract and he wants the Ravens to extend him. So he hasn't even started practicing with the team yet. And that seems to be frustrating John Harbaugh from everything I've been reading and watching. So for that reason, I'm not very high on him. That combined with the new offense with Todd Monken, focusing on the pass more and other potential options in the backfield, I think he'll have around 175 carries, maybe 800 yards and 6 touchdowns. He may see a little bit more action out of the backfield, 20 catches and a couple of touchdowns. But I'm just I've finally gotten over J.K. Dobbins. It took me a couple of years, but I did it.
Yeah, if he could get there and practice, it's to not be there to practice, to get into it, to learn the new offense, and especially with Todd Monken's going to be calling fewer rushing plays, gives more of an opportunity for him to be catching passes. I'm fading him too. I don't like him this year. I think he'll get more into that later.
Rachaad White of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Yeah. He doesn't really have a whole lot of competition in the backfield. Chase Edmonds is there, and he'll probably handle the bulk of the third down work because Rachaad White is an absolute liability in pass protection. He's going to get some volume, though, this year. It wouldn't surprise me if he got 225 carries. It's going to be at a low average, though. The offensive line just isn't that great at run blocking. I'm thinking somewhere around 850, 900 yards rushing. if he hits 100 yards receiving, I'd kind of be surprised, and maybe he finds his way to 5 touchdowns. He's somebody I'm not interested in at all.
Not interested in anybody in that running back room. It's probably the weakest on paper. I don't like that team. Nah, I don't like. No, stay
They're going to
away.
be bad.
Chris Godwin's like the best fantasy option on that team. Maybe the only fantasy option on that team.
Evans will have value depending on where you can get him, but
we'll see if is he only going to get 4 targets.
Right. I'm not falling over myself to take anybody from that team. Like, no, I'll pass.
This is another team. I when I say this, I mean this in a negative way. They're in a better position than the Rams, but they need to blow it up. They have more pieces that they could trade off with Godwin, Edmonds, Tristan Wirfs. I know you don't want to just completely gut your team, but if they want to start a rebuild and be in contention for a top 2 pick next year, they could really set themselves up nicely to be a young, exciting team in the next couple of years, but I don't think they're going to do that.
James Cook, 25th running back, 72 overall, younger brother Dalvin Cook, in case y'all didn't know that. He's in his 2nd year, had a nice year last year. He's a dangerous receiver out of the backfield, big explosive speed. He was PFF's #1 ranked runner at breakaway run rate, 44%. Average 5.7 yards a carry as a rookie. Dude, I think reports say he's going to be a central part of that offense. Help Josh Allen, not fucking be Josh Allen. Defense has kind of played a lot of, safeties deep because of Josh Allen's throwing ability. That might open up some more holes for Cook. They lost Evan Singletary. Who'd they grab there? Dameon Harris. And Naheem Hines, of course, was fucking around on a jet ski. He's
with
done.
Kenny Powers.
Yeah. That leaves that pass catching role wide fucking open for Cook. I'm very excited about his ability coming out of the backfield. Fantasy aspect. Yeah, Harris might steal some goal line touches, but Cook's going to be good. I like him. 175 rushes. I'll say 800 yards, 5 touchdowns. I think you'll get over 50 targets. Probably 35 receptions, 350 yards. And I'll say another 4 touchdowns through the air. He's firmly on the RB2 radar, even if there's a 50-50 split there with Harris.
I think Harris has more touchdown upside, but in a PPR, I like Cook better. Do you know his middle name is Dalvin and Dalvin's middle name is James?
I did not know that. That's very interesting.
That is my contribution.
Just to touch on Cook real quick. At some point, Josh Allen has to stop running the ball as much as he does. And you would hope that they start to be more cognizant of that so that it doesn't cause an injury and cause them to lose a season because of that. So you would hope that James Cook and Dameon Harris both get some more touches because of that. They need to focus on running the running backs more than running the quarterback.
They do. They need to make a switch to that, but you also have to be mindful of the fact that part of what makes Josh Allen is that threat of him running the ball.
Yeah. I think you can keep that, though, with him being more judicious of when he runs.
For sure. I thought you were going to say jujitsu there for some reason.
Mental jujitsu. I was jujitsuing myself. All right. At number 26, we've got Deandre Swift, a guy that you guys are familiar with, being on the Lions last year, moving to the Eagles this year. In 14 games, he had just under 100 carries for 542 yards and 5 touchdowns. A lot of catches out of the backfield, 48 receptions, 389 yards and 3 touchdowns. My concern with him is that Philly is much a running back by committee team. They've got Rashad Penny, Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott back there. I think there will be games where Swift really lights it up and puts up some points, but there will also be some games where he just doesn't give you anything. I think overall he'll have about 175 carries for 800 yards and 5 touchdowns. Out of the backfield, I think he'll be consistently where he was last year. 45 catches, 290 yards, and 2 touchdowns. One other thing that concerns me, not only with Swift, but the rest of the Philly running backs, is that Jalen Hurts, they use him on the goal line to rush for a ton of touchdowns, and that takes away from any running back that you're hoping is going to give you some fantasy production on the Eagles. So Jalen Hurts is a bit of a touchdown thief in that respect. So much as it is with a lot of guys down in this area, if the matchup's right, maybe a couple of guys are banged up in the Philly backfield, maybe you plug him in a certain week, but I wouldn't rely on him to give you production week in and week out.
He's looking to be the number one back there, according to training camp reports. The game the other night they played against the Ravens, he wasn't even in the passing game, which I thought was kind of strange given his ability. But then I thought about the receivers you got there. It's going to be hard to be any more than a fourth option there behind Brown, Devontae Smith, and Goddard. So I thought that was weird. He just rushed the ball. Didn't do any receptions. Weird.
And that might just be Sirianni trying to keep things vanilla in the preseason as well. And they were going to go up against the preseason juggernaut that is the Baltimore Ravens.
That's true. And it's a new offense he's getting acclimated to. So
it is. I'm fading that whole backfield, really. Both him and Penny. If I'm going to take anybody from that backfield, it'll be Kenneth Gainwell, and I'll take him with one of my last picks. Swift, to me, I think the same issues that surfaced in Detroit will continue to surface in Philly, in that he's not really the toughest guy out there on the field, and that hampers his abilities. Yeah, I'll pass on him.
Yeah.
The thing is, I loved him last year, and I was so disappointed when I didn't get him like end of the first, top of the second, and looking back, I'm so thankful I didn't.
Yeah. He has had a history of not being able to play through some minor injuries.
Another guy that's kind of injury prone himself is the number 27 running back off the board, James Conner. He is somebody who has that backfield to himself. When he is on the field, he's got excellent touchdown upside. If I go 0 RB, this is probably a guy I'm going to target as my RB1. This season, I'm looking for him to have somewhere around 800 yards. He can do a little work in the passing game. I'll give him 3.25 there. He has double-digit touchdown upside. He's shown he can do it in the past. I'm not going to project that, though, for a guy like this, but I think 8 is well within the range of outcomes for him. Where you're getting him 7th round, number 76 overall, sign me up. I'll take him with the understanding that maybe I'm only getting 12 games out of him or 11 games out of him. But if I have him as my flex, for sure, I can deal with that.
Yep, I agree. I would grab him. He's got, there's nobody else. Yeah, he's got a chance to be a bell cow back. Good, if he can stay healthy. Of course, being a bell cow might prove to be disastrous, and of course, you didn't get an injury, but I had James Conner a couple years ago on my team. Man, it's great.
Yeah, he scored 15 touchdowns a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that was great.
And somebody's got to score touchdowns on that team. And
that's true.
It's not going to be very many other people. So he's probably going to have limited opportunities just because that offense isn't going to be very good. But if you can get him down on the goal line, he's a guy that can cash in.
Yeah. He's a sensible choice for an RB2 or an RB3. Solid.
Especially if you wait on running back.
My sleeper is D'Onta Foreman, running back for the Chicago Bears, played for Carolina last year, had over 900 yards rushing. And he didn't start till after week 7. No, week 6. Week 7 he started. I like him as a sleeper over that running back room of Khalil Herbert and rookie Sean Johnson. Herbert's a great rusher. Got a great ability to do that. It's everything else that he can't do. He's not very good in pass pro. He's not much better as a receiver. I like Foreman. He's 235 pounds. I like to be the candidate to handle goal line and short yardage. He's never been a big receiver in his career, but he's been heavily featured in the passing game in training camp and plenty of first team reps. So clearly he might have improved in that area. So I like him. 150 attempts, 675 yards rushing, 6 touchdowns on the ground, and I think he'll grab 30 receptions this year for 300 yards and 1 touchdown.
Nice. I've heard some conflicting reports out of camp of him running with some first team guys and Khalil Herbert running with some first team guys. There's going to be a lot of carries up for grabs there, though.
That was the number one rushing. They run the ball like 58% of the time last year, 59. They were number 1, I think.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. A lot of that was Fields too. I mean, helping that. My sleeper is Gus Edwards of the Baltimore Ravens. Talked about this with Dobbins being hurt the last couple years and being in a contract dispute. Gus Edwards has a chip on his shoulder and is ready to show that he is worth putting on a long-term contract. He's a little bit older, but I think that let me back up. He's coming off an ACL injury 2 years ago. So he's coming into that second year with the ACL. And because of that and the issues with Dobbins, I think he has an opportunity to really put up some decent numbers. I look at him around 130 rushes for 650 yards and 4 touchdowns, 15 receptions, 100 yards receiving, and another touchdown there. Not going to light the world on fire because of the offense and the God damn it. Generalities. He's not going to light up the stat sheet, but I think that he could be a solid option with some upside, especially if that Dobbins situation doesn't work itself out.
For sure. There's some upside there with the bus.
Yep.
You're not going to see him on the field on third down, but
No.
You can still do a lot of damage on first and second down. My sleeper is Tyler Allgeier of the Atlanta Falcons. He is the 43rd running back off the board. You can get him in the 13th round. Last season, as a rookie, he went over 1,000 yards. He averaged just a hair under 5 yards a carry. Didn't score many touchdowns, but he was splitting time with Cordero Patterson. As I talked about earlier with Bijan Robinson, the team context there is fantastic for a running back. They've got a great line. They have a head coach whose philosophy is to pound the rock. Bijan's going to get his, but when you have somebody who averaged 5 yards a carry on over 200 carries last season, I think there's an opportunity for him to push for 200 carries again this year. If he does, I think he's going to be right there near 1,000 yards with a handful of touchdowns. You could do a hell of a lot worse that late than somebody who you could end up plugging into your flex for half the season. It is going to be probably a little bit of matchup dependence, but I just don't see the Falcons running Bijan into the ground this year if they don't have to, because they have another very competent young running back there to help carry the load.
Makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, I like that pick. And it just, I mean, I understand that Bijan is an elite talent, but it makes you scratch your head when you have a running back that's coming off that year that you go back and draft another running back in the first round with that high of a pick.
Right. I mean, Bijan's going to get his 300 touches.
Yeah.
Allgeier's not going to be out there on third downs the way Bijan is. I mean, like I said, he's essentially free at this point. People are taking kickers in their team defense in the 13th round. That's going to do it for our running back preview. Drop us a comment. Let us know what you thought. If you disagree with our assessments, or if you agree, or if there's somebody you want to see us break down in the future, let us know. You'll be able to also find our rankings for both running backs and tight ends on the website at stonedownsportspodcast.com.
Next, we have our back in the day replay portion. I'll just go ahead and get it going. Hey, fellas.
Have at it.
August 16th, 1920, Cleveland Indians shortstop Ray Chapman is hit in the head by New York Yankees pitcher Carl Mays and dies 12 hours later. He is the only player to die directly from injury received during a major league game. His death led baseball to establish a rule requiring umpires to replace the ball when it becomes, dirty or whatever. His death also helped lead to the ban on spitballs after the 1920 season. However, still took him another 50 years to, adopt a rule for a fucking helmet, which would have made much more fucking sense. But yeah, dead. Only guy.
Yeah, give him one of those leather football helmets.
All right. Yeah, that'll save him. Ramey, what's your back in the day?
I almost did yours.
No shit.
Yeah, but I didn't. This week in 1986, United States Football League standout Herschel Walker signed to play with the Dallas Cowboys of the National Football League. Walker was a standout at Georgia, a Heisman winner, and probably is most famous for being the catalyst in the trade between the Cowboys and the Vikings that set up the run in the 90s, the dynasty, just because of how lopsided that trade ended up being, and Jimmy Johnson doing such a good job with the picks that were given to him by the Vikings. I'm not going to run through the whole trade, but the Cowboys were given 3 or 4 different players, and then the option on some future picks contingent on keeping or cutting those players. And Jimmy Johnson cut all of those players and kept gaining first and second round picks and third round picks from the Vikings to supplement that roster and set them up for success throughout the 90s. So I'm sure you love that, Kyle.
It worked. Jesus. They were good. They were. Man. I had Elvin Harper in the fantasy football team one year, and he had an excellent year. Man. Matt, take us back into history.
August 14th, 1959. A group of folks meet to form a new football league. Charter members include Dallas, New York, Houston, LA, Denver, and Minneapolis. The following week, this fledgling league would be named the American Football League, and about a decade later, they would merge with the NFL, giving us the football that we know today.
That wraps up our back in the day replay. Let us know what you think. A lot of interesting tidbits there from history. Thanks a lot.
All right, now it's time for our 6-picker.
I love it.
I'm just kidding.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks, buddy.
Shout out to Kyle. All right, let's do this week's 6-pick. Fuck, now I got my head. Oh, no.
That's good stuff.
I'm melting.
He's got the yips.
Yes.
This week's pick sixer is going to be short and sweet because we've talked about a lot of stuff during this podcast. Speaking of short and sweet, we're going to talk about our favorite snacks. I'll lead it off. Mine's a mix of sweet and salty. My number 6, and say the same thing about any of us at any given time.
All right.
My number 6, peanut butter cookies. Love homemade peanut butter cookies. They're one of my favorite. They're probably my favorite cookie. Number 5, Rice Krispie treats with chocolate on top, also known as Scotcheroos. Not sure.
Scotcheroos.
Yeah.
I know all
I've
about
never
those.
heard that term.
Oh my God, they're delicious.
Yeah, they're fantastic. Rice Krispie treat with melted chocolate on top.
Nice.
Delicious. I'm going to go pretty basic for the rest of my picks, but number 4 is popcorn. I love popcorn. It's a great snack, whether you're watching a movie, watching a game, just looking for a bite. Cheesy popcorn specifically. I'm going to upset Matt a lot with my next picks because a lot of them are cheese based. So apologies in advance. Number 3, corn chips. Love me some good Fritos. I could sit and eat a whole bag of them if I wanted to. And a lot of times I have in the past. So corn chips is high on my list. My number 2 is a very weird one, and I learned this from my grandfather. It sounded disgusting when he told me about it, but it actually is pretty good. And I don't know if anybody will like this, but what you do is you take a jar of green olives, and you also take a pack of Colby Jack cheese bites or chunks. You take an olive, you take a cheese chunk, and you throw it in your mouth. And it sounds gross. Matt, I know you hate cheese, so it probably is gross to you, but just the mix of those two flavors is really good for some reason. It's like salty. And
I was gonna say that's a lot of salt.
yeah. I do
I
love
like
me some
olives,
salt.
like
Yeah.
cheese, but I would do it. Sure. I mean, I've seen at like hors d'oeuvres, you see cheese and olives together a lot.
Yeah.
Stuff, so
Yeah.
it's not weird, but it's not probably. It's an acquired thing.
Yeah, for sure. Leads me to my number 1. It's been my all-time since I was a little boy, nachos and cheese. Can't go wrong with nachos and cheese. When I was in high school, we had an a la carte bar. Instead of getting the school lunch, you could go get a piece of pizza or whatever little snacks you might want. I got nachos and cheese. Safe to say 90% of my lunches during high school. And thank God I had a metabolism back then, or else I would have had a problem. So that is my favorite snack of all time.
I'll get you one up there, get you excited. So in high school, me and Matt's first year, they closed the campus. It used to be an open campus. Students could leave and go to wherever for lunch, and closed it that first year. And they brought in an agreement with Taco Bell. And they did a basic menu there: soft tacos, hard shell, nachos and cheese, I think, and Cholitos, maybe chili cheese burritos, something like that. It wasn't a huge thing, but I bet you would have just fucking thrived on our high school menu.
I thrived in high school as it was, but even with that, it would have just made it that much better.
Sure you did. Sure you did.
I did.
You were a thriver.
Mm-hmm.
My top 6 are, let's see, in no particular order: peanut M&Ms. You know when they have the bag that says tear and share? I don't share it. I ate the whole thing. Next, Snickers ice cream bar. I mean, I like Snickers bars too as well, but Snickers ice cream bars just really just ups it. I love them things. It's hard to not eat 2 of those in a sitting. They're good. They're rich, but you got to watch it. I also like to eat Cheez-Its with peanut butter. I don't know. That's delicious. I'll just sit there with a spoon and grab peanut butter up and dip with the Cheez-Its. It's delicious. Next is Neapolitan ice cream. It's my go-to ice cream. You get a 3-in-1. Take a scoop of each. It's delicious. And cookies and milk. So like specifically Chips Ahoy Original and some milk. Oh my God. Yeah. I'm the guy that's got to just take a handful and have the milk. Don't bring the package over to the sofa with you. That'll be a mistake.
Won't be a tear and share anymore.
Tear and stay in the way of fuck cookies. And number 1 on my list is Lay's potato chips. I love them things. Yeah, plain Lay's, the way to go. I know that I like chip dip with them, but they're so, not as strong as some other chips out there. So I don't even dip with them. They're just salty, oily goodness. Matt, tell us what fucking junk food you eat on a regular basis.
Not junk, it's snack. For me, number 6, Nutter Butters. Package of Nutter Butters has a life expectancy of about 36 hours in my house. I absolutely love them. Number 5 for me is peanuts in the shell, salted. Sit there with a couple bowls, one of them all together, one of just the empty shells, and watch a game and chuck them down. Number 4 for me, like you, Kyle, plain Lay's. They're delicious. Sure, doesn't surprise you. I'm not a chip dip guy. Number 3 for me is Carr's sweet and spicy mix. You've probably seen it at the store. There's some, I don't know, crunchy
raisins,
Cajun yeast. No raisins. It's
no.
like some toffee covered peanuts and some other stuff in there that's spicy. It's good. It's in the red bag. Number 2 for me, chicken and a biscuit crackers. I love those things since I was a kid. Box doesn't make it long. I can't keep it with me, even though I want to, like it's a long lost best friend that I want by my side. But I have to put it away. Number 1 for me, barbecue Fritos. I could smash the whole bag in one sitting, and my toilet would hate me for it about 18 hours later, but they're just so damn good. And they were gone for a long time. They got brought back about a year ago, and they're back to stay. And when I first noticed them there, I went and bought, I think, I don't know, like 6 bags or something like that, and stocked up just in case it was for a limited time. But yeah,
It lasted 2 weeks.
Yeah, pretty much. Just destroyed them. They were delicious.
Those are some good ones. I like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, coming from 3 snacks, which we're a bunch of snacks here.
Right.
And,
It's making me hungry.
yeah.
Could go for a snack.
For sure.
Let us know what your favorite snack is, or if we named one of them on our list. Be sure to comment, subscribe, like. Let us know. We'd really be curious to find out. Thanks for listening.
And that's going to do it for this week's episode. No, it's a little bit longer than usual. We appreciate all of you sticking around through it. Again, a big thank you to all of our subscribers and our sponsor, Rocky's Pizza of Swartz Creek, Michigan. Really yummy pizza there. Everything they've got on the menu is just delicious. You should go check them out. Kyle, take us home.
I'd like to remind everybody about the Fantasy Football Podcast Listener League. There's 7 teams in, so there's 5 spots left. Jump in and get a spot. Draft will be on September 26th.
No, it absolutely will not be.
Oh, no, it will not be. Let me start that over and figure out what day it is.
September 6th.
6th.
Thank you. I'm going to start up.
It's staying in. Don't bother.
No, fuck off. Is it really?
Yeah.
All right. I'm sorry, folks. It's September 6th, the Wednesday right before the season kicks off on that Thursday with Lions Chiefs. Been a good episode. Talked about a lot of running backs. Next week, we got wide receivers. Our Chicago correspondent, Justin, will be joining us. He's been on here before when we did our NFC North Division preview. Great guy. Excited to have him back on. Ramey, got anything?
No, I thought that was a really good discussion about running backs. I'm not the biggest. I enjoy fantasy football, but I'm certainly not as into it as you guys are. So going through this research, hopefully really helps me this year, because there's going to be a lot on the line with us being in the same league, mostly pride, but
all shit talking.
There's also that $50 Fanatics gift card that I will,
that we can't win.
Yeah,
right.
No, I
and
will.
It's 75.
Oh shoot!
75.
Oh shoot!
Yeah, I thought we said that.
I thought you said 50. My bad.
Oh, I said 50. I've marketed 50.
50. 50 works.
Nice.
And some swag.
Yeah.
Sure. Or a hat.
Absolutely.
Or a magnet for your fridge. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
Branded condoms.
Thanks for joining us, folks. It's been a great week. We'll see you next week. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Out on Tuesday.
StoneNoteSportsPodcast.com.